It was around midnight on a Monday night, and I had just seen Thanatos Incarnate at St. Mortis. I was hanging out at the merch table with the guys from Inverted Cowgirl, one of the local openers, with whom I'd become friendly in between sets. I dug their music, and due to the intimacy of the venue, I was able to approach them and tell them so. The songs they played picked up where the old school left off, but it was still its own unique sound. It was good enough that I wanted to hear more, so I bought their album and a t-shirt. The music, though, wasn't all that attracted me to these guys. I'd been reading and researching anything old and occult I could find for a couple of months prior to this show, and everything about Inverted Cowgirl's aesthetic indicated to me that they knew about what I wanted to know about. 3 antique candelabras held 6 black candles each, which burned for the entire set until they were mysteriously extinguished after the lights had gone out on the band. The vocalist and bassist Sam confirmed to me that the blood all over Thanatos Incarnate had been provided to them by himself, who worked as a butcher, and that all the bones and skulls I'd seen on stage were real. Sam, the guitar player Bill, and the drummer Az told me that they were all active practitioners of left-hand path philosophy and magic. I was not at the point where I was ready to buy into what they professed, and I wasn't sure that I wanted to be, but I was curious to know more about it, and they were happy to feed my curiosity. They had all read extensively on occult practices of every age, and recommended several books with which to start, assuring me that I would notice change in my life and begin to feel empowered as soon as I started reading, and began my journey down the left-hand path. They told me that my presence would command respect, and that women would be drawn to me like a magnet. This seemed too good to be real, and although I didn't say so, Sam picked up on my doubt. "I can tell you think I'm bullshitting you," he said, "but we're on our way over to a club just a couple streets away right now. Come with us. There are girls there who go crazy for guys like you." I had every reason to be skeptical, and I knew it. I'd known these guys for less than 6 hours, and all I knew about them was that they were steeped in the occult and one of them was a butcher. Also, the word club sounded almost intentionally vague. I didn't feel pressured by Sam's invitation, though. I still felt that the choice was mine, and I admit that the offer sounded pretty appealing to me. I wanted to go where these guys were going, and I wanted to get laid, so I accepted the invitation. We walked out of the bar and into the moonlit night. After an intricate series of left turns down blocks and side streets which grew more desolate as we went on, we stopped at the mouth of an alley which led down a short flight of stairs to a black metal door. Red light spilled into the alley from a neon bulb above the door. "We're here," said Sam. He, Bill, and Az started down the stairs. By the time they reached the bottom and knocked 6 times on the door, I was still standing at the top, wondering what the hell I was doing there. This entire scenario had "bad idea" written all over it in red neon letters, but I'd lost track of the way we'd come, and I wasn't about to ask my cool new friends to abandon their plans so that they could guide me back to my car. The 3 of them were down there waiting for me to join them, so I descended the stairs. Once I did, the door swung inward, and we stepped inside. A sweet smell of incense hung in the air as I followed Sam, Bill, and Az through a narrow corridor, dimly lit by chandeliers hanging high above us. There was only one way to go, but I kept my eyes intently fixed on my companions ahead of me, and made sure to keep up, because the thought of being left behind in this corridor struck me as somehow very dangerous. I couldn't see the walls very well, but every few steps I could see the candlelight illuminating grotesque carven faces on either side of me. I remembered medieval paintings and woodcuts depicting visions of hell and demons, and found myself hoping that these faces were only statues. For what felt like a very long time, all I could hear was our swift footsteps, but after an interminable distance, I became aware of soft, provocative music coming from far, far ahead of me. I think I sensed its vibrations in my extremities before I can say that I actually heard it. The sensation was similar to what I had experienced at the concert, which now seemed lifetimes away, but the music itself stood in stark contrast to what I'd gone to St. Mortis to hear earlier. I could not identify any of the instruments I heard, and none of my prior knowledge of the musical world included anything which sounded at all like what was coming from our unknown destination. It was becoming louder and more distinct, though, which I could only assume signified that we were getting closer to the reason I'd followed my 3 new friends to this club. We stopped abruptly, and I almost simultaneously bumped into Az and jumped out of my skin as 2 torches flared to life on either side of us. I could see that we'd arrived in some cavern which looked like it was hewn out of subterranean rock. 4 steel doors blended into the wall ahead of us. Sam, Bill, and Az turned to me. "You ready?" Sam asked me. I must have looked pretty stupid standing there gaping and speechless. He clapped me on the shoulder with a reaffirming squeeze. "Don't be nervous. She's waiting for you. Just be yourself and act natural." Each of them turned and entered a door. I was left by myself in the cavern, and the music had stopped. I didn't much feel like being by myself here, and although most of me was terrified, part of me wanted to know who she was, so I walked over to the door on the right, took a deep breath, and stepped into the darkness. The next thing I knew, I was surrounded by tall grass as far as I could see, waving serenely in a gentle breeze. I turned around, but instead of the door I'd come through, I saw a pretty girl in jeans and a t-shirt. She had dark-rimmed glasses and longish red hair. Her skin was pale and spotted with freckles. I noticed the Blood Goat logo on her shirt. Blood Goat was my favorite band. "Hi," she said. I was thoroughly perplexed, but I didn't want the most beautiful girl I'd ever seen to pick up on that. "Who are you?" was the best I could come up with. "I'm your dream girl," she responded. "I'm everything you seek in a woman." Considering the way I'd been transported from a torchlit subterranean cavern to a sunny field of grass, I was inclined to take this at face value. It still took me a few moments to process, though. "Am I in heaven?" I asked. This made her laugh a laugh that made my heart leap and my knees weak. "Yeah, sure, and I'm an angel, right?" she sarcastically asked me, grinning. I was taken aback. "Listen, I don't even know what I'm doing here," I replied. "Well, what do you want to do?" she asked me. This made me forget all about the fact that I had no idea how I was going to get back home from wherever I was. "You know what I want to do," I told her, and drew her face to mine. As I kissed her, I felt myself being drawn further and further into her, and I loved it. I devoured her lips and tongue, pulled her head back by her hair, and softly bit the white flesh of her neck, as I'd always fantasized about doing to the cute redhead of my dreams. I laid her down in the grass and pulled her shirt up over her head. I looked down at her chest and was confronted with what looked like a steel bra, covering what I wanted to see. "What the fuck is this?" I exclaimed in dismay. I had not felt this metal barrier under her shirt when I was kissing her, but by that point I realized that this reality operated under different rules. "Don't worry, it comes off," she said, sitting up. "See?" She turned her back to me and pointed to a keyhole where other bras would have a strap. "Well, how do I unlock it?" I asked, suspecting that I wasn't going to like the answer. She stood up and turned around, holding an ornate knife in her hands. I stood up. She proffered me the knife, and I took it. "There," she said, pointing behind me. I turned around, and a few feet ahead of me I saw a primitive stone altar with a flat surface. Lying prone on that surface was a female body in a flowing white garment, which billowed in the breeze. My dream girl drew up beside me, put her hand on my shoulder, and said, "The key is inside her. All you have to do is find it." Disbelief is not the word for the state I was in, because I knew she was in earnest. By then, I was used to the idea of things and people that weren't there materializing behind me, and I assumed that eventually there would be a catch to this dream girl business, but I was not prepared for this. I walked over to the altar. Looking down at the sleeping woman before me, I received another nasty surprise. I was looking at my ex-girlfriend. My dream girl pressed herself against my back and breathed, "Hurry up, I'm horny." Never in my life had I experienced anything like what I felt as I stood there. I hadn't seen my ex in years, and I'd spent a fair amount of that time thinking about vivisecting her. But now that that fantasy was within my reach, I had no desire to fulfill it. I really wanted to fuck my dream girl, who was massaging my chest with her fingers. But was I willing to gut my ex-girlfriend and explore her innards in order to do that? I'd be lying if I denied turning it over in my head, but I kept coming back to the same answer, and that answer was no. I turned around and gently pushed my dream girl off of me. "I'm not doing it," I declared. "Send me back to where I came from." My dream girl gave me an annoyed, incredulous look, and the sky began to take on a reddish hue as the breeze blew a little harder. "I know you've been fantasizing about murdering her for years," she said crossly. "I'm not going to ask how you know that, but that was fantasy, and I'm not murdering anybody. Send me back to where I came from." She looked like she was growing visibly paler and thinner. Her hair darkened, as did the crimson in the sky. The breeze had become constant and threatened to increase with every gust. Through blackening lips, my dream girl said to me, "You can't even begin to imagine how badly I can hurt you." I tightened my grip on the knife in my hand. "I told you I'm not killing anybody. I don't know how I got here, and I have no idea who or what you are. I don't care if you're my ideal woman or the devil. Send me back to where I came from." The sky deepened to blood red, and a violent gale raged all around me. The entity that had once worn the face of my dream girl bared a mouth full of teeth like rotten needles, outstretched its grimy claws, and leapt at me with a screech like nothing I hope to hear ever again. Knowing that more than my life might depend on a moment's reflex, I reacted, thrusting the blade into where I believed her heart to be. I still hear her agonized scream when I wake up from nightmares. Her black blood spouted in all directions and hit me square in the face. I closed my eyes and lost consciousness. I don't know how long I was out, but I remember a dream of drifting on cosmic winds through unfathomable spaces. And when I woke up, the sun was shining in through my bedroom window. It all came back to me as I went warily about my morning routine. I went downstairs and saw my mom at the kitchen table. "Did you have fun at the concert?" she asked cheerfully. I stood for a moment, taking in the reality of what surrounded me. After what had happened last night, could I really have made it back to the world I knew without any kind of supernatural hangover? Had it even happened? Everything I saw was just as it had been before I left for St. Mortis the day before. "It was awesome," I replied to my mom. "It got a little crazy, but you know how shows are sometimes." I went about the rest of my day, and everything was normal until I was getting ready to go to work. On the front passenger seat of my car, I found the inverted Cowgirl album I had bought, and wrapped in the t-shirt, I found the black stained knife.